Hello, Iris J here with Madrona's Pulse Teachings, Astrology for Healing, and I am here having one of my astro chats that I like to have with you. And today I want to talk with you a little bit about the asteroids in astrology, a few of the asteroids, not all of the asteroids, but the kind of core asteroids that we work with, especially when we're opening up a natal chart. Working with the asteroids is also how we work with the aspects of the divine feminine and how they manifest in our natal chart and in astrology and in the transits and in the cosmos of our psyches and bodies, in this language that astrology gives us. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome, welcome, and please like, subscribe, and all of that jazz. And I want to get into talking about these asteroids. So today I'm going to talk about Ceres, Vesta, Juno, and Pallas Athena. So the asteroids are really interesting. I always work with them in my practice. Some astrologers do not. And, you know, the asteroids were discovered in most of them in the 1800s, and they really entered into astrology in the 70s. Demetria George has kind of the go-to book on looking at the history and understanding the core archetypes of the asteroid goddesses. That said, there's more publications on them now. And it is really interesting to note that they kind of entered into the collective astrology consciousness during the rise of feminism in the Western world, right? And we have to note that, especially when we're looking at traditional lenses of astrology, and very much still in today's world and practice, there's a lot of ways in which patriarchy and lenses of power and gender are kind of just woven into the interpretation of the planets and the signs and what they mean. We see this, for instance, with Saturn. We see this a lot. Saturn means a lot of things, and sometimes it just gets kind of talked about as the stern father figure. Saturn actually has some yin energy to it. There's many other ways to work with Saturn, and I have a video on that. You can go look at that. And so what happens is we can't talk about the asteroids without talking about the way that they really bring in the divine feminine into our way of looking at the chart and opening up all the different aspects and archetypes of the psyche that are manifesting through astrology. And just one note, you know, it's complicated to talk about this when we're talking about the divine feminine and the energies that come up through the asteroids. We're really not talking about this in the way that the complicated ways that we have finally started talking about gender. We're talking about this as an energetic quality. I really actually like to use the yin and yang energy, and yin and yang comes up in both masculine and feminine archetypes, and I'll open that up as we go through. It's complicated layers. And the asteroids are also really important for healing and reclaiming, and especially in cultures where we haven't valued the feminine, where the feminine has been equated to something that is to be either property or owned, which is the history of the female identity in most, not all, but most cultures. The feminine, divine feminine energy that comes through in the core goddesses is part of reclaiming on our individual journeys and on our collective journeys. So I just want to open up the core of these archetypes and kind of what they speak to in our natal chart. So let's start with Ceres. So Ceres is the Earth Mother. Okay, a lot of folks have heard the story of Persephone. Persephone was this woman that was stolen by the Lord of the Underworld, taken into hell, right? Ceres is her mother. This is important when we're understanding Ceres, because a lot of times in our culture, we just talk about mother energy as, you know, this comforting female identity. It is still very complicated for mainstream media to represent the mother as having more than just the nurturing, right? So Ceres is really important because she shows us the whole spectrum. She is the Earth Mother. She is like the archetype of that Earth Mother energy. She is in charge of the harvest. She is in charge of nurturing. And when her daughter is stolen, she rages. She rages, and there is drought, and there is death, and there is violence. And that is part of the whole spectrum of this power. Ceres is incredibly powerful. In our natal chart, she really speaks to the place in our psyche that's showing up in whatever house and sign that she appears in, where we have a connection with the Earth Mother, where there's an ability for us to be in relationship with her so that she's manifesting in our consciousness, in our life. Very important for how we want to embrace our journeys in this current climate crisis. Very important that we develop relationships with Ceres for that. She also speaks to nurturing, to our relationship to things like food, our relationship to that which our body needs. Part of our relationship to our body comes up in Ceres, and just more of the ways that we nurture. She's absolutely part of the mothering archetype. So a lot of times we only look to the moon or Cancer when we're talking about the journey of motherhood, being a mother, being a daughter or son to a mother. Ceres is part of that journey as well, okay? But she's really the principle of, like, the mothering principle as an archetypal energy. And this is regardless of whether or not we ourselves have children. This is about how we all embody that energy. And there's a lot of deep earth wisdom in Ceres. It doesn't matter if you have her in a fire sign, or if you have her in a water sign, or if you have her in an earth sign or air. There's earth wisdom that we're able to access, that we're able to manifest in our lives. And so if you have her in a prominent place, like if you have Ceres conjunct your sun, or you have Ceres conjunct your node, or, you know, however she's showing up and whatever she's in conversation, this shows part of the ways that that Earth Mother archetype wants to manifest in you throughout your life, and the ways in which it wants to color your identity and potentially your soul purpose, depending where she is. Next, let's talk about Juno. Juno is traditionally the goddess of marriage. So she's where we look when we want to talk about long-term commitments, okay? So like sometimes we're just taught, oh, if you want to know about relationships, you just look at Venus. No, Venus has to do with our values and the way that our values actually extend into who we enter into relationship with. She's also part of the divine feminine, absolutely. But Juno is where we look when we're firstly interested in those long-term commitments and partnerships. Yes, traditionally marriage, but if it's just someone that we're in a partnership with, whatever that relationship looks like, we would look to Juno. Also, she's where we give our word. She's where we hold an incredible amount of integrity. And so she also kind of governs contracts, we would traditionally say. So legal contracts like marriage, or legal contracts that we enter into with a business, you know, she's that contractual place where we give our word. Juno's also, you know, as one of the goddesses of that looks over marriage, she's also concerned with traditions and how they manifest and how we can reclaim. Juno, we really have to pay attention to her myth, and we have to bring what for me is a decolonial and feminist lens to our astrology and archetype practice when we're working with her. Because the thing about Juno, she's married to Zeus. Zeus was a horrid husband. He was horrific. He cheated on her, he raped women, he prided himself on manipulating others with power. And the thing about Juno, and part of why she was worshipped in the ancient world through a patriarchal lens, is because she never cheated on her husband. She never ever went into that place. What did she do? She took out her anger and was vindictive towards the innocent women that were victims of Zeus. So, you know, when we work with Juno, we really want to reclaim that we don't martyr ourselves, that we don't hold to tradition so strongly that we end up martyring ourselves. We want to reclaim her in this way in our natal chart, where we have integrity and where we give our word, and how that means and what that means for us. And also where you have Juno can also speak to what's really important for you in your long-term commitments with individuals, especially in, yes, our romantic lives. If you have Juno in Pisces, that says a lot about the way that you want to relate to people and what that commitment means to you. There's a spiritual lens, and it tells us some of the things that we might need to look for in our partner for that relationship to really, really support us. Similarly, if whatever's Juno aspecting, what is she talking to? That also shows us a lot of information about what partnership might mean for us, how complicated some layers of partnership might be. The house she's in shows how that partnership is going to influence other parts of our life. It might be important for our place in the world. It might be really important for the more interior parts of our life. So where Juno is placed is also really important. Next, let's talk about Pallas Athena. So Pallas Athena, goddess of war. Okay, so divine feminine equals goddess of war, strong strategy. She's very important. She's also incredibly creative. She's also a weaver and an artist, and in this way we can really see that the ability to have this intellectual grace is also part of being an artist, and the way that we weave ideas. I work with Pallas Athena really as the archetype of creative wisdom that shows up in our chart. Also, of course, a place where we can strategize in certain ways, but there is a gracefulness to the way that Athena is able to wield her ideas. And she's also incredibly powerful. She is someone that you don't mess with in certain ways in the ancient myths, right? And it's interesting too, in the myths, there's absolutely a coldness to her. She is someone that, again, is able to just work with this ability of wielding ideas and does not get caught in the emotion of the experience. And so wherever we have her kind of manifesting in our psyche, she offers to us a place where we just have this incredible wisdom to wield, where we have strength, where we have power. And again, this is divine feminine power. This is power that is able to counter the idea of power that is just domination. Even though, yes, of course she was a goddess of war. Yes, of course she cared about winning and having power over others. But we evolve with the archetypes and we work with her, and the way that she really teaches us to access that wisdom and weave the more progressive ideas of what power means in this life for ourselves and in relationships with others. And depending upon where she is in the chart, that's going to show how we're wielding that power of ideas and wisdom and that creativity that is just inherent to Athena. Last asteroid that I just want to talk about quickly in this astro chat is Vesta. Okay, so with Vesta, we come into a different dimension of the divine feminine, very different than Athena. We're coming into our sacred sexuality. The Vestal virgins in the ancient world were the tenders of the sacred flame, that's the sacred hearth. And they were very unique in that society, and that they were, as young girls, this path would be chosen for them, and they would enter into this sacred union with the divine feminine, the divine goddess, and they would not become the property of a man in terms of husband, and they would leave their father's home. So they were really able to actually live in a place where they were with female energy, right? And they remained virgins, okay, while they served to the goddess, while they served the collective in terms of that. And then when they were around 30, they could decide if they wanted to marry or not. And a lot of them didn't. And so this energy of Vesta, where we have Vesta in our chart, really speaks to the sacred flame. And this is a sacred flame within ourself. And Vesta is about our relationship between us and the goddess, okay? Where we have Athena, that's going to be how we're really manifesting this divine wisdom, this divine feminine wisdom in the world, depending upon what house it's in. Where we have Vesta, it's about a connection between us and the divine, okay? This is really important because she does have this healing, sacred sexuality energy, especially when we're working with those deep waters of healing in the body and the psyche. Vesta is a place where we want to look to see what she's talking to, how she's showing up, what she's aspect. She's also very important to our creativity. Because, you know, think of that Kundalini fire energy. Vesta is in there in the, like, I like to work with her in the root and second chakra area. She's really opening us to our experiences of intuiting the divine feminine, and then depending upon where she is in our chart, how we manifest that in our lives and how we heal with that. And we're like, she helps us reclaim an aspect of sexuality, especially in the Western culture and Hollywood and mainstream pop culture, that really doesn't have a difference between the sexualization, the objectification, especially of the female body, and sexuality. And Vesta allows us to reclaim that. And there is a difference between being sexualized and accessing this incredibly creative sexuality. And she helps us to explore that. And if you're interested in Vesta, actually I forgot about this, but I have an online course, self-paced course on Vesta, and it's super cheap. I put it on special for Eclipse because Vesta was really in the eclipse. And so that is our 4 main divine feminine asteroid goddess energies. There's so much to talk about them, but I like to keep these astro chats kind of short, and I just want to introduce the energies. Always consider a divine feminine reading, if from myself or anyone, but that's usually where you see them coming up in the chart, and they really help us to kind of get under the surface into that reclaiming energy and working with the goddess in her various manifestations. And that's what the archetypes are really lovely. They show in a very Jungian sense of the archetypes, they show the way the goddess manifests in these different iterations, and these are some of them. So I will leave you with that. I hope you are well wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.